Paper Cut Club on Oman FM.
Hello and welcome to the Paper Cut Club on Oman FM, where we discover a little bit more about the world and ourselves through the magic of the written word. I'm your host, Fatma Makki, and today I'll be joined by my friend and fellow book blogger, Mehreen Sheikh.
Hi, you guys.
Today, we're introducing a new segment that I'm calling Tangents, where a guest and I will share our unique angles and takes on different literary matters and go off on our own various and no doubt unexpected tangents.
Tangents.
Basically, it's a way for me to incorporate my favorite conversations, those rambling discussions that always seem to take you to unexpected places.
My favorite.
Yes, I know.
Love it.
But before we even begin, I have to address the elephant in the room, Mehreen.
Yeah. Is it our footwear?
No.
Okay.
It's the fact that sitting somewhere in the dusty corners of my my MacBook is an episode that's never been released of the two of us talking about, what was it?
God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy.
Yeah.
Confessions. I didn't know we were going to confessions.
Don't ever think, please don't think for a minute. We haven't talked about this, okay? Since I recorded it.
Yeah.
Well, more or less, you know. But this was recorded pre-COVID, if you remember.
Yes,
how long it's been.
Just before the onset of COVID, yeah.
And I hit a wall at that point. That was when I hit a wall with being able to produce the podcast. And I was like, I can't do this. Actually, this episode broke me. The one of our God of Small Things.
I think I'm not mad about it because we went through so many dramatic things.
I know.
I call it year 1, 2, and now year 3 of COVID. I think even I was like, you know what, it's fine. And the situation at the time when we recorded the podcast also was not great. The environment, etc.
Yeah, true.
So many things were going on. So I'm not mad at you for not. And it was quite a heavy episode.
Yeah.
When I look back at it, there was so many intense things that we talked about that I don't know if people would even want to read that book. Will they be encouraged or discouraged?
No. But nevertheless, I mean, it was a 3-hour recording, so the editing for that was always gonna be like a challenge.
Yeah.
But I wanted it to be, a very long episode. I was planning to divide it into 2 anyway. But I'm still determined to have that released on a podcast. So it's gonna happen.
Inshallah.
And it'll be nice. It'll be like a time capsule because we'll be going back to like the before time.
Yes.
Before the pandemic, before our lives changed.
Yeah, before our lives changed.
Yes.
And this is a timeless book, I feel.
It is timeless. It's totally timeless. And it's also relevant now because Arundhati Roy is kind of having a little bit of a comeback in the public eye, I feel.
Yes, yeah. I recently just bought her book, A Sedacious Heart.
Nice.
Yeah, it's available in Borders if anyone wants to buy it locally, but I bought it in India. And it's a thick, really big book of like all her like
collected
essays.
works.
Yes, essays that didn't see the light of day, stuff like that. I'm loving that authors are doing that because Jhumpa Lahiri also did that with Whereabouts. And that was the last book I read in 2021, not realizing how much I needed it because it just presented her as a person and, her daily life and things that didn't work out. And it had this melancholia to it, like this melancholy feeling.
Yeah.
Is that how we call it? Melancholy?
I guess.
Yeah. It had that feeling to it, this like sad undercurrent of sadness that's not entirely depressing, but something that people face in their lives.
Yeah.
And it made it so relatable. So I'm loving that
wow.
authors are coming out with a vulnerable side of them.
Yeah. This is all to say that the episode will come out at some point.
Yeah.
And I'm really sorry that it hasn't yet.
I accept your apology.
But I feel like when it does, it's going to be all the more exciting. I'm trying to hype it up to myself even now. I know it will be fun because we're going to look back on it and be like, wow, we sound so different, blah, blah, blah. Like we probably will actually sound different. We've talked a little bit about books that we've read in the past, but I'm keen to talk about what we're reading now. Act 1. What are we reading now? So basically in this segment, I just want to talk about the books we're reading now. So I'll let you take the lead.
I'm actually dabbling between 2 books. So remember how in the previous episode I had mentioned that I want to be more of a mood reader? I think it's manifesting now. So I started reading A Passage North by Anuk Arutpragasam. I hope I'm saying his last name right. So he was a Booker Prize nominee.
Yeah.
His book was all over Bookstagram last year. People were raving about it.
Really?
And I think he was a favorite to go on to win. Like people were hoping he would win, but he didn't. But yeah, that caught my interest, and I thought, you know what, I need to see what the hype is about. And then I also found H is for Hawk by Helen McDonnell. I found this on my friend's bookshelf.
I have this.
I've been meaning to read this for a while. So a common
Same.
theme with both books is, I think, coming to terms with grief.
Wow.
Strangely, I chose both of them, but in all honesty, I am gravitating more towards H is for Hawk because the concept and the story is so interesting. So this is basically Helen's memoir. Remember how I told you I wanted to read more memoirs?
Yeah.
And her father was like this expert falconer, right? And then he like suddenly passes away, and she's grappling, like she's trying to, she's struggling with grief. So then she's like, you know what? I'm going to go out and train the most difficult hawk there is out there to train.
Wow.
So in a lot of ways, apparently this book is really humorous and heartwarming, which to me is like really awesome. If you can make me laugh and cry the next minute, you've done it.
Yeah.
You've really, really achieved something.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are the two books that I'm reading currently.
Nice. Well, what's A Passage North about?
Passage North is about, so it's also written slightly like a memoir. It's not a memoir. And just a bunch of thoughts of this man who gets news that his grandmother's caretaker, Rani, passes away. So now he's based in Sri Lanka. He's taking this long train journey from Colombo to go to Rani's hometown, which is a war-torn, war-ravaged area. So the whole train journey is basically like a reflection of like things that have happened in the past, going through these troubled areas, and what is the meaning of life ultimately and what it means to live, etc.
Wow.
So both the books, again, like I said, common theme of grief, but I feel like with these books, there's always like a silver lining, or there's some sort of like life lesson.
Yeah.
It's not as intense as they sound like.
I know, I get what you mean, because otherwise it's just too difficult to get through, basically, if it's just misery upon misery.
Yeah, like A Little Life by Yannick.
Oh my God.
I cannot do that. That's a book I cannot
This
do.
has been coming up even more. A Little Life has been coming up a lot lately, and I will bring it up a little bit later on in the show. But it's been coming up a lot. That one's just so miserable. Like, it's 800 pages of just
Pure misery, yeah.
tearing your heart into little pieces, and I warned people, and I read it when I was pregnant, so that was
Oh my God,
very,
why would
very
you do
dumb.
that?
Yeah, it was very stupid. I was like sobbing the whole time. Like, it's traumatic. That book should come with a literally, like, I've never said this about any book, but that book should come with a trigger warning, like a whole page of trigger warnings, because it's very, very graphic.
I've seen many people say the exact same thing, that the trigger warnings are like max to 100, this, that, etc. But it makes me, like, since you read the book, I would ask you, like, was it necessary for the book to be that traumatic? What is your opinion?
Okay, so just for people to know, there's a lot of abuse mentioned in the book, and a lot of violence, and a lot of violence towards children. So I feel like it was personally, I feel like maybe I would have given a different answer if I had read the book, if it existed, if I read the book like before I had a child, basically, I probably would have been like, yeah, it's art, it's like whatever. But now I'm like, this is like, I don't know. I don't feel like it was necessary.
Yes.
What, there comes a point in when you're writing a book or reading a book, where the point has been made, the point has already been made. So why is this it's like beating a dead horse.
Yes.
Yeah. With all of this abuse and abuse and abuse, it's just like unrelenting, you know what I mean? And it's just like, I don't know if should I be doing this with my spare time? Like putting myself through this kind of horror?
Not everybody wants to read that way. And also, like, such a good point you made. I feel this way often, like a lot of times people feel like something has to be, in order for something to be poignant, it has to have some sort of trauma or some sort of like dramatic action in it that's like heart-stopping. And I feel like, aren't we dealing with enough already? Do we really need that?
And actually, that's another point, is like before the pandemic, I would have had a higher tolerance. Yes. Now I have much less of a tolerance for
even for shows like everybody's watching comedies or like comfort stuff.
Exactly.
And, like, watching Friends again for the millionth time.
For the first segment, for the first season of COVID, I was
one of COVID.
I was only watching purely reality show. That's it.
Yeah.
I couldn't watch anything else.
Yeah.
and it was like trashiest stuff I could find on TV.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to escape from this hell that we're living in right now. Let me just watch reality shows. Now then it went into comedies, and only now I'm like, comedy, a little bit of like a serious movie, maybe
Yes,
here and there,
yeah.
but that's it. Yeah, my taste for entertainment has completely changed.
Completely altered.
Completely.
So yeah, so for the choice again, going back to the two books, that they sound really heavy, but I just know that there's going to be something nice that I will have to take away from both the books. So yeah, what are you reading now, Fatma?
For me, okay, so I typically only read one book at a time, usually. But this time, I don't know, because I have the book club going, and that's going at a really steady pace, I decided I'd like mix it up a little bit. And now I'm reading 3. So it's a bit unusual for me, but we're going with it.
Mood reading.
Yeah, mood reading, exactly.
Yeah, mood
You know, and they're all fiction too, which is nice.
Fantastic.
And they're all in very different worlds, literally. So the first one is obviously the book club read, A Brief History of 7 Killings by Marlon James. And this one won it was called the Man Booker at the time, Man Booker 2014. And it's about the attempted assassination of Bob Marley, which actually happened. This is a real story. 7 gunmen stormed into Bob Marley's house and tried to assassinate him. They shot up the house all over the place, but they didn't actually get him. They grazed his arm, I think. And this set in motion a chain of events which led to Bob Marley's self-imposed exile from Jamaica. And yeah, it basically follows the characters around Bob Marley, and it really goes into their heads. And it's just, so far, I'm like, I'm actually further than this. I'm like 150, 170 pages in.
All right.
And it's a very long book. It's 700 pages.
I read it last year.
Oh my God, what'd you think of it?
Oh my God, it is something. It is something. I will say this, like, okay, so I'm sure you will find, I don't know if I should talk about this now, since we're going to book club.
It's fine. I mean, this is based on real events.
Yeah.
So it's not like anything here is a spoiler. I also
Yes,
watched
yeah.
the Netflix documentary,
Yeah.
which talks about the same thing, so I could give myself context.
Okay,
For people
great.
who are interested, it's called Who Shot the Sheriff? And it talks about the same story. It's a documentary about Bob Marley's assassination attempt.
When I read the book, okay, so there were two parties, and just like any opinion for any book, one part of a good bunch of people told me they didn't understand anything in that book, which I could see, and I get it, because it is written with
Jamaican patois.
yeah. So that gets very difficult. Also, I don't think there's a glossary in it. I don't think so. So you're really, really like,
You have to slog.
you really have to work for it. And I think I appreciate it, because it's, this is how it is.
Yeah.
This is what they're talking about. This is how it is. So some people really couldn't get into the book because it was far too dense for them and too much for them. It is also a very graphic, very violent novel, but again, fact-based, factual event. And the other half said that stick with it. It will all come together in the end. Like right now, it seems hazy. And I think I fall into category 2 because, again, in the end is where, oh my God, it gets really explosive.
Oh my God.
It gets so explosive and you're just like, oh, this
wow.
happened. So it's, again, not for everybody. But if you are somebody who is willing to take the plunge, do it. Yeah,
Okay.
because it's a very important book, I feel.
Well, one of the reasons why I put it on the book club is so that I can commit to actually finishing it, because I was worried that I would be in party A of not completing it.
Yeah.
But I figured if I'd and this is kind of sneaky of me, like I figured if I make it in the book club, then I'll definitely have to finish it.
Yeah.
And it's working, like aside from the fact that I have to finish it from the book club, I actually really want to, because everybody, like even you, whose opinions I actually look to about when it comes to books, says the same thing about this one. So I'm really excited to finish this one.
Yay.
But yes, it's very graphic. There's a lot of patois. But funny story, when I was in university, I actually studied Jamaican patois.
Oh, wow. So you have a head start over everybody else.
I don't know why, but I studied it. And I even like did a presentation on it, and I made the whole class a CD with like a selection of different dialects within patois based on
God.
like Jamaican music.
Great.
So it was funny, but anyways.
So you basically have a head start on them.
Yeah,
Let's
I
just be
do.
honest.
So the next book I'm reading, this one, it's called Only in London by Hanan al-Sheikh. Now, I got this book because I've heard Hanan al-Sheikh's name come up so many times in conversation and but recommended by others as a very well respected Arab author. And she's written some fantastic books, masterpieces. One of them is called Beirut Blues, and that one is really, really highly lauded. This one is not one of those masterpieces. I'm sorry. Like, I can't stop reading it now because it's officially a hate read. I'm just reading it so that I can get mad at it, basically. I brought this book, I brought the actual physical copy with me so that I can read to you one tiny little excerpt to explain why
It's
rubbing me the completely wrong way.
Oh gosh, I can't wait.
So just to set it up, basically the story follows 4 Arabs who touched down in London. They all took the same plane from Dubai to London. And in it is like this beautiful woman, Lamis. She's divorced from her wealthy Iraqi husband. Nicholas is a British expert from Sotheby's on Islamic daggers.
Okay.
Sorry, they're not 4 Arabs, but they're 4 people attached to the Arab world somehow.
Okay.
Louche and noisy Amira, who's a Moroccan who lives off immoral earnings.
Oh my God.
And
okay.
transvestite Samir with a monkey hidden in the basket. By the way, I'm just reading this from the blurb. So this is exactly what it says there.
Okay.
And,
okay.
And yeah, so it follows these 4 people. I mean, like every stereotype you can think of about Arabs or people who live in the Arab world exists in this book.
From the blurb itself, I was like, oof.
And I was trying to give it a chance. I was like, I shared it with one of my Moroccan friends on Instagram, and she was like, I don't know about this, you know? And I was like, no, let's give it a chance. And I was like, maybe it's like, you know, ahead of its time because it was published in 2001 2001. But let me set up this particular scene. So Lamis, the divorcee, the beautiful divorcee, has decided to take English classes specifically to improve her English pronunciation, not her like language. She speaks well, but she wants to be more English, basically.
Okay.
So there's this one scene here where her instructor is trying to teach her how to pronounce the letter R. Okay. So she goes, so this is what the excerpt says. It's the R, thought Lamis. I have to stop it jumping on my tongue like a child jumping over a rope. I should make it stay back in the darkness of my mouth. Lay it down as if I were preparing it for sleep. But it catches me unaware and runs off like a thief afraid of the barking dog. Aha, I know, the teacher had said. Showing the tongue is one of the taboos in your culture. That's why you have difficulty pronouncing the properly. An Israeli actor drew my attention to this when I was beginning to despair of his pronunciation.
Oh gosh.
Okay, so...
where do we begin?
By the way, the whole book is like this.
Gosh.
First of all, why... There is... I don't know where to begin.
Right? I don't know where to begin. I really don't know where to begin. These are things that like...
There is the letter the in Arabic. There is already it's a full letter.
Yes.
Why would you have any and why would who I'm sorry, I'm speechless. Like I can't with this book, but I'm not gonna give up because I want to hate it even more.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm going to continue.
Yeah, you can't fully hate on something if you haven't finished it.
If I haven't finished it, I'm committed. I'm committed to everything, to all of my hate and all of my love. It's all a big commitment.
You ride or die. There's no 50-50, you know?
Exactly.
But this is not the first book I've heard. I mean, it's embarrassing. There's so many authors with like Arab-esque names or like some link to the Arab world, and they have books like this published.
This is
out
really,
there that unfortunately doing really well in the Western world.
Yes.
And it worries me. Like, it really worries me. We have a very big name that everybody was reading for a while, if you remember. Was it Jean Sassoon?
Oh, God, don't. I've always hated Jean Sassoon or Jean Sassoon or whatever her name is. I've always hated the books that she's put out because of her, anytime I see a book that has a picture of an Arab woman wearing a hijab and looking miserable, basically, or just her eyes, you know, like exotic eye picture with a burqa on or whatever. I'm just like, pass. Yeah, I know what this is.
I know what this is. It's always those pretentious covers and those dreamy titles.
And she's like a beautiful but oppressed woman in a family in Saudi or whatever, you know, like
Exactly.
every stereotype you can think of. It's
But
just,
there is a target audience for that, and the target audience is willing to spend a lot of money to read that. Is what I've
Absolutely.
realized. So
yeah. So I was really disappointed in this, but like, you know what? I'll keep going. So I know exactly, you know, it's keep your enemies closer kind of thing.
And your third book?
Oh, yes. So my third book is actually A Court of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J.
J.
Maas.
Maas.
Yes. Which is so different for me. It's a fantasy. It's like the fantasy novel or series. And I decided I was going to get into fantasy because my friend Victoria is always talking about fantasy picks and fantasy books. And every time she does mention one and she sends me a picture, I'm like, I need to do this. So I want to get into this whole world and and I like fantasy novels. I just haven't read one in so long because I feel like it takes some initial effort in the beginning to like get yourself into the world. You know what I mean?
Yes.
To get accustomed to this world that she's built. So it's like effort you have to put in at the beginning. But then once you invest in that time to like allow, you know, build up that world in your head, it's like, I imagine it's like super fun afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
My intention is to get more into different genres. And that's actually a good segue.
Act 2.
Act 2.
Act 2.
Yay.
Genreification.
Genreification. Just like you, I also took a big break from fantasy. I think I used to read a lot of dystopia fantasy back when I was like 22, 23. I think that's the age when you're like, you know, blowing through them one by one. You read what's popular, etc.
Yeah.
So like Leigh Bardugo and all these authors I'd read long time ago, and now they're resurfacing because of Netflix adaptations and stuff like that, which is awesome because at the time we couldn't even think of it. And just like you, I also towards the tail end of 2021 I read a fantasy novel by P. Djeli Clark, Master of Jinn. I know his favorite. I know the popular work that he had out was Ring Shout.
I don't know any of these.
Oh my God, Fatma.
What?
Yes, you have to. It's so good. One of the books he released last year was Master of Jinn. Master of Jinn as in like Jinn.
Jinn, yeah.
And it was awesome because, again, it isn't just fantasy. It's steampunk fantasy.
Oh, wow.
So it gets very specific. You know, again, steampunk is a genre that doesn't have a lot of writing in it. It's pretty interesting. It's always Victorian era, you know, it's amazing. It's fascinating.
For people who want to like picture something, picture Wild Wild West starring Will Smith and Salma Hayek and all those. But like, yeah, that's a perfect visual representation of steampunk. Yeah.
There's also The Invention of Hugo Cabret, the movie as well. There was a book and a movie. Again, steampunk. So like, again, me too.
Yeah. And okay, so just for people who don't know, steampunk is, as Mehreen mentioned, it's a genre. And also a genre is a classification of a book. So it can be fiction, nonfiction, science fiction, but like, like 100 years ago, there were probably like a handful of genres. Now, with more and more time passing, there's more and more different types of genres and subgenres. And it's just getting super granular now, which is a whole topic in and of itself. But yeah, we're talking about steampunk now, which is cool.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, we're talking about fantasy. Fantasy now, I didn't know it becomes such a broad term. You have like, you know, steampunk, and you have dystopian fantasy. Like that's a thing. That's two genres together.
Yeah.
And then you have sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah.
You know, it really trickles down.
It does.
And before we would just be like fiction and non-fiction.
Exactly.
You know?
No, for real. And like, and also even within fantasy, there's become this quite big now world of Muslim sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah.
Which I really, really love. And I'm going to get into that. Now, I bought recently Tahira Mafi. I don't know if that's how...
she says Tahra. Yeah.
Tahira Mafi, who wrote a series called Shatter Me, I think.
Yes, yeah.
And all of her books are like Shatter Me, Defy Me.
Yes, yeah.
Something else me. Yeah.
Master of Jinn is set in Cairo, 1920s Cairo.
Wow.
And it has a female detective, you know, and she's head of the Ministry of Alchemy, and it is...
Wow.
I read the whole book.
Does Ammar know about this book? Ammar, he needs to know about this.
Oh my God, let's tell him.
Yeah, we need to tell him.
Hello?
Hey, Ammar.
Hey, Fatma, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. Everything's good. So good to hear from you guys.
Thanks, man. We were talking about you just now. trashing you as usual.
You'll hear back on the episode.
No, we were talking about this book, and I was like, and Mehreen was talking about this book, and I was like, no, Ammar needs to know about this book, so we literally called you to talk about
Well,
All right. What is this book?
I'm probably butchering the author's name, but it's P. Degeli. I'm guessing Degeli is like a French pronunciation.
Jelly.
Yeah, Clark. Okay, I'll send you his correct spelling later. And he wrote the book The Master of Jinn, right?
Have you heard of this book?
Have you heard of it?
No, but I hear this kind of title and I'm always interested.
Okay, so leading up to this book, he had written 2 short stories previously that I just happened to find. So one was A Haunting in a Tram Car, and A Dead Jinn in Cairo. So basically these 2 short stories like set the premise for the main book. It's set in the 1920s in Cairo, and it has the Ministry of Alchemy. So there's like jinns flying around and angels flying around, and there is steampunk.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And just throwing steampunk into all of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's like a female detective, like she works at the Ministry of Alchemy, and she has to investigate all these like supernatural, like bad stuff happening, and not bring them to justice, but like solve cases, like police cases almost. So there's like
So it's like police procedural / historical fiction / steampunk / Cairo.
Yeah, and then
and
there's like
supernatural,
the
everything.
entire mystery element. Sounds so good. Where do we find this?
I did not find it in Borders, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I did not find it locally, but it was released last year, and I managed to find a copy, so it should be fairly simple to order online.
All right. This sounds like an amazing sort of thing. I'm totally looking forward to just having the full name somewhere. I'm guessing you're going to post it somewhere where people can find it.
The Literature Snob 2.0.
Awesome. I'm
Thanks,
gonna have
Ammar.
it right now.
Thanks, Ammar.
Thank you, Ammar.
At Naimi Hero. On Instagram and
No,
Twitter.
but it's amazing to hear about this book, and I'm looking forward to reading it if I can find it. So thanks for the heads up.
No worries.
No worries.
I'll
Take
see you
care.
soon.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Of course, it's not 100. Like, I wouldn't give it a 5 on 5. Still room for improvement, but it is still a solid book. Like a book that hasn't been written, about this region, those elements, and our historical elements. Elements from stories that we've heard growing up. In the Middle East and stuff. So I thought that was pretty awesome. That this author just decided to write about Cairo steampunk, solving a mystery, jinns on the loose,
Yeah.
all that
It has a lot
exciting
of
goodness.
Yeah. Is this out? Sorry.
Yeah. This was out. This was one of the most anticipated releases of 2021. Yeah, so he has a couple of short stories that lead up to the book, which I didn't know. I was like, oh, these short stories are exciting. What is next? And then I see he has a whole book out that had just released in 2021.
Wow.
So-
I'm so hyped about this.
Yeah. So I think a lot of cultural exploration happening in the fantasy world as well, which is pretty sweet and pretty awesome.
Wow.
Lots of cultural diversification, I feel, is happening in the fantasy storytelling as well,
And not just in fantasy, but another one genre which I wanted to bring up today. And this is going to sound super niche, but it's actually not, as far as I'm aware. And that's historical fictions written from the point of view of the historically marginalized.
Yeah.
And it sounds, like I said, it sounds like it's incredibly specific, but if you really think about it, I feel like we're really going into a trend, or we've already fully launched this trend in the past, I would say 5 or so years, maybe a bit longer.
Right.
And just the reason why I thought about this was because in the last episode, you were talking about Layla Lalami's The Moor's Account.
Yes.
Which is, about an actual expedition that took place in the 16th century, was it?
Yes. Yeah.
And it was written from the POV of a Moroccan slave.
Yes. One of the sole survivors on the slave.
Yeah.
That was something.
And then I that reminded me of a book that I had read recently by my friend Victoria Princewell, who wrote In the Palace of the Flowers, which is another historical fiction based on factual people, and written from the perspective of a woman who was enslaved in the Qajar court. Sorry, I don't know how to say that word.
Qajar, yeah?
Yeah, Qajar court in the Persian Empire. And then I was like, this is something. Like this is not the only time in the recent past that I've read books like this. And for example, immediately the first example that comes to my head is what's it called? Washington Black by Essie Edujan. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I haven't.
It's actually pretty amazing. Okay, so this is historical fiction. It's more of a historical fiction fantasy,
Right.
Because it talks about real events. Like for example, it's based on it starts off in a slave plantation in Barbados.
Okay.
There's an inventor who lives on that estate who tinkers around with, his, inventions. He came up with this hot air balloon type contraption.
Okay.
And basically him and his slave leave the island and the slave escapes and he becomes a free man. And then it's his journey around the world as a free man.
Oh my God, I can't wait to read this book.
I know, it's awesome. So going back to genreification. Yeah. Washington Black is amazing. Washington Black is super, super good.
Washington Black.
And so I highly recommend that. And there have been so many historical fictions recently that have been starting to be retold. Like Colson Whitehead is another perfect example with the Underground Railroad. Yeah. And actually, I'm assuming there have been many narratives about the Underground Railroad in general.
Yes.
There's been a rebirth in historical fiction, I feel, recently, where people are suddenly starting to realize that history has always been written from the eyes of the winners, the victors.
Yes, that's true.
And now people, I think, don't want to be reading stories about, for example, wars or oppression written by the perspective of one of the descendants of the oppressor.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's a very good story about somebody on Bookstagram wrote this on a comment when I was reading The Scarlet Letter. By I forget who the
Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Nathaniel Hawthorne. So interestingly, she said that she visited, I think, the Hawthorne, is it the museum or the literary space that you can visit where authors are working on. And apparently Nathaniel Hawthorne changed the spelling of Hawthorne to distance himself from an uncle who was a judge on the Salem witch trials.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was a descendant. Like his uncle was on the witch trials, and apparently it was his uncle's wife who was also showing those signs, and he was the one who was quickly like annulling, like, oh no, it's not
fine.
like it's not
totally
witchcraft.
normal.
It's something else.
What?
So he changed his last name in order to like distance himself from his like terrible family history.
Breaking news: Nathaniel Hawthorne is cancelled.
Can we? I mean, he tried.
300 years later.
I feel like he tried, and then he wrote the Scarlet Letter.
I'm kidding. I'm so against canceling. Just FYI, but I'm just joking.
I mean, he did write a pretty forward book in a time when, oh my God, we're still discussing it.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So genreification. There's just so much to go through.
Yeah.
Within each
genre. I mean, I think that we're gonna have quite a few. Coming up in the paper cut, quite a few episodes that's probably going to be focused on similar books. So I'm excited about that.
I'm excited too.
Yeah. And speaking of future prospects.
Act 3.
Act 3.
Looking to the future.
Books that we're reading, literary events that we were looking forward to, etc.
Yeah. So what are you looking forward to in the next couple of weeks, couple months? Any new book releases or events?
Not like I was traveling, but I had my eye on, I follow the Jaipur Literature Fest.
Me too.
And it broke my heart to see that they postponed it to March because of obviously the circumstances. So
I know.
It made me wonder, like, a book fair of that scale, like, what is it like to like cancel it or postpone it or like have it derailed by the great pandemic?
But I mean, the lineup looks still amazing.
It still looks amazing. So I don't know if they're going to do an online format because I know they're very active that way. So the lineup looks great. So if anyone is going in March,
get me a ticket.
Yeah, contact us, tell us.
No, but Jaipur Literary Festival is one of the largest in the world, if not the largest.
Yeah, free.
Free?
Yeah, it's free entry. So you have the option of going free.
Wow.
For the general public.
Yeah.
Or you can also pay to get a slightly more elevated seat, I would say, that allows you to interact with like authors, private dinners and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
I had the good fortune of going as a VIP because at the time my parents paid for it.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a birthday gift.
That's awesome.
But it was awesome because so many great authors and there was Shashi Tharoor, like so many great people, so many amazing people that you're surrounded by. But even to go as just a free member, like free registration, I think it's something everybody should do once in their lifetime.
Jaipur is amazing. I always have an eye on what's going on over there. And one day I'm going to make it there one day I'm going to make it there.
You're so close.
Yes.
You're so close.
I'm so close.
Distance-wise, you're close.
I know.
So, aside from that, there are two books. When I was just scrolling through the list of upcoming releases for 2022, there are two books that caught my eye. So, the first book is Fiona and Jane by Jean. Is it Jean Chen-ho or John? John is the more...
I would say Jean.
Yeah. So Fiona and Jane by Jean Chen-ho. It's already released, apparently, 4th of Jan. And it's a story of basically female friendships. Like,
Nice.
It goes into the deep complexities of female friendships. So basically these two Taiwanese American immigrant girls, you know, they were born to immigrant parents in LA, and their friendship like spans like 2 decades. So they go through like relationships, betrayals, family drama, distance, etc., etc. And it caught my eye because it's something that is not explored a lot in literature, I feel. Like female friendships also tend to unfortunately take a back seat.
Totally.
And it really made me reflect on some of my own friendships. Now, I might not have many that span 2 decades, but I do have friendships like so many things have happened and we've just stuck together, you know, like that force is strong, you know, regardless of distance, etc.
Or time or anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other one will not surprise you. This is Manifesto by Bernadine Evaristo. Yeah. Again, another nonfiction memoir style, you know, more musings from authors that I'm really, really interested in reading this year.
Someone recently that I follow shared, they got an advanced copy and they mentioned that it was amazing. Yeah. So I think you're going to have a good one.
Yes.
Yeah. For me, I mean, Jaipur was definitely on my list as well. Looking forward to it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and the good thing is they also announced that they're going to be fully hybrid this year. So you can attend online.
Yes.
Which is awesome. And so at least I'll be able to like get the feeling of it sort of, you know?
Because it does get heavily crowded.
Yeah.
It does get heavily crowded.
And then the other festival or fair that I'm looking forward to is happening right here in town, Muscat Book Fair. I'm excited.
Happening.
I haven't been in so many I and obviously I don't know if I actually not sure if there was one even last year with everything that was going on. But
I'm excited for its comeback.
I am so excited. Yeah, I'm like, I want to check it out. I want to share with like my audience what's happening. I'm really stoked about that. And as for book releases, there's so many. There's so many book releases that it's actually a little bit staggering. But funnily enough, I know I just said that like Hanya Yanagihara's.
Oh my God, yes, her book.
But she has a new book coming out. And I am very excited about this one. And I know that I just talked about how her book was extremely traumatic.
Yeah.
But her writing is so good. Like the new release, when I was reading about it, I was like, maybe I can give this one a go and give A Little Life a miss, you know, because it does sound intriguing enough. Yeah. It's called To Paradise.
To Paradise.
And actually, I think it's getting released in January. So by the time this episode comes out, it may have already been out, but I am so stoked for it. And it's a different one. It's an epic set it's a historical fiction written from the point of view of a historically marginalized.
Awesome. Perfect.
There you go.
So like a lot of the books that you and I mentioned are getting released in Jan. So like, you know, Fiona and Jane already released. Manifesto is getting released on the 18th of Jan.
Yeah.
And To Paradise is being released in Jan.
Yeah.
And awesome.
Yeah.
So it's a good start to the year.
Yeah, definitely. And another one that I'm particularly excited about is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akweke Emezi, which is her, I think it's her second novel. If I don't want to say for sure because
doesn't she have 2 other books? She has Freshwater.
It would be her third.
Yeah. So she has Death of Vivek Oji, which is on my TBR. Freshwater also on my TBR.
Yes. But this one I heard is a romance novel, and I've been wanting to get into romance novels as well. So I figured I'd start with this one because I again followed some people who love her and they've read her advanced copy and have praised it as a very good example of what you can do in a romance novel. So I'm excited. I think it's fresh and interesting.
Yeah.
And finally, my final book I'm excited about is, I don't even know how to pronounce it, but I'm excited for it. It's called Lapvona by Otessa Moshver.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So Otessa Moshver wrote My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which is a fantastic and weird book.
Oh my God, everybody was like, if you think you're reading this for rest and relaxation, my God, it's about all the anxiety that you
It's very anxiety ridden, but it's such a good book for our times.
Yeah.
I read it like in the beginning of 2020, which was very prophetic.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I also finished it in one day because it's just it's a quick book, and you know,
Yeah.
it's very sharp, it's very clever, and I fell in love with her style a little bit. So when I saw that she has this book coming out, I don't know, I'm excited for it.
I think many people will be excited for her next
Yeah.
release. I think so. She was one of those authors that like blew up during the
Yes.
pandemic. Like a lot of people were reading.
And I have her Eileen. Eileen is one of the books that I hear being talked about constantly by everyone. You know, so I'm in the process of getting to it in my TBR, inching towards it
Slowly. Oh my God.
slowly. Yeah, but yeah, there's just I'm really excited for 2022 as a reading year. Like I mentioned that in the last episode, but the more news comes out, the more excited I get. The
Yes.
number of releases that's coming out is just so insane, and all from amazing people. Like this is just a drop in the bucket.
This
for what's
is just
in
a
store.
drop in the bucket. And I love that like both you and I seem to be really branching out
I
from
know.
like the kind of picks that we have.
I'm so proud of
and
us.
the kind of books that we are going towards. Like we're really, really branching out. So last year it was all about like, you know, reading across cultures, and now we're branching out in like more feelings, emotions.
Yeah, genres.
You know, genres. Yeah. Every possible kind of diversification that we can find. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm proud of us. I think that this is what I always wanted to do.
Yeah, I think so. And this time I didn't, just like you did last year, I didn't give myself a number. So I have 2 good books to read, and I have Fiona and Jane that I'm very excited to read as well. So I'm just going by what my, you know, mood and gut and like what I'm
Yeah.
gravitating towards, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I think it's a much more organic way,
Yeah.
natural, and it's less stressful. Like
Yeah,
again,
it's less
we say
stressful.
reading is for fun. So it doesn't have to be a chore. It doesn't have to be homework. And I repeat this at every book club
Yes.
to all of the members, that you don't have to finish the book. You don't even have to read the book. You just need to be ready for a discussion.
Exactly.
And be okay with spoilers.
Be okay with spoilers, and like no opinion is a stupid opinion.
Exactly.
If you think like, oh, why did she do this? Why she should have done that? Say it. You know, just say
Yeah.
it. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's your opinion. It's what you thought of the book. It's
Exactly.
okay. So yeah.
So I'm
That's
happy.
a good
So-
start to
It is.
2022.
Also, another thing that I forgot to mention previously is that I'm going to be running a giveaway very soon of Amara Naimi's book Saram. So I'm coming up with a contest idea. It's going to be big. It's going to be fun. Yeah, so look for that. It's on our Instagram account at thepapercut.club. Yeah, stay tuned for more. I'm excited for this. Thank you so much, Mehreen. This was awesome, as usual.
Thank you so much for having me, Fatma.
Yay, you're welcome.
I love how we get carried away. And I hope anyone listening was able to piece together something.
It's okay, Abdullah's going to work his magic.
I love that both of us are wearing Crocs today.
The Papercut Club is a member of the Oman FM podcast collective. You can find all of Oman FM's latest shows and updates on Instagram at omanfm.om. This episode was hosted by me, Fatma Mekki, and edited and mixed by Abdullah Al Maawali. You can follow the Papercut Club on Instagram and TikTok at thepapercut.club, or you can find us on our website at www.thepapercut.club.
Thank you for listening and happy reading.
Paper Cut Club on Oman FM.